on, come on, come on. Give it up, give it up. Give it up, yeah. All right. Yeah.
Now that's a party. That is a celebration worthy of that is a celebration. We're honored. Thank you for that. And I'm just so appreciative and grateful for everyone that has contributed to making this day possible. I mean, we wanted just to make sure that it happened because many of us didn't get a chance to share in the moment, but we all were affected and impacted. I mean, Wink had such reach, world-class talent. We have world-class journalists, we have executives, we have world-class artists, whether they're musicians, whether they're dancers. All of these folk had they were all in the same net cast by Wink. And so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna take a moment to ask a few names to come up and share a little bit about 2-3 minutes, a little bit about what Wink meant to you and how you met him, and just I'll leave kind of it in your hands as to what you'd like to say. But if I could have Quincy Coxton, Rembert Brown, Jonathan Hart, Lorenzo Hammond, Terry Alexander, Cecilia Torrance, Sean Polite Bledsoe, Dr. Edith Fresh, and is Drill. I'll let you guys self-select in terms of who'd like to step forward first.
Good morning. I'm going to take that 3 minutes seriously and drop one of these pages on the floor. It's really beautiful to be here. In some way, I think this is what Wink would have wanted. He always wanted us to get together. I'm standing here next to my big bros and sis right now. I showed up, or I met Wink when I was 7. I was playing baseball at Adams Park, and we had baseball practice where the John A. White golf course currently sits. And in that practice, I missed a pop fly, and it hit me in the nose, which was kind of telling of where my baseball career was going. And my mom needed to get me some ice, and so we went up the hill, and that's when my mom met Coach Wink, and I met Coach Wink in 1994. And it's funny because I can't really remember a time when he wasn't around. I don't remember a ton of stuff from age 5 or 6 or before, but he's always been this constant presence, which has taught me so much. And I just wanted to tell 2 quick stories that there are thousands of stories, but 2 quick stories that just make me smile. The first is when I, was preparing this 17-minute speech earlier this week. I was just thinking about, I was going through this cycle of grief, sadness, crying, laughing, just kind of in a cycle, and this thought popped into my head, which I was almost on the floor laughing, which was remembering when Wink got a cell phone. And I just remember he was like the last holdout in North America to get a mobile phone. And it made me laugh because, you know, he wasn't a follower. He was a leader, sometimes a skeptical, stubborn leader, but not a follower. And just because everyone has cell phones and everyone was doing this, he was just like, I don't need a cell phone. And, you know, I was thinking about it because in some ways there was the I don't do what everyone else does thing. But it was also, you know, I think he was trying to, in some ways, protect his peace as long as he could. You know, he was already being stretched thin by hundreds of families in Southwest Atlanta. And his, you know, his really only defense mechanism was like, maybe you can't find where I am. But that also became one of the great joys of my life. You know, after I left Atlanta to go to college, I would always come home. My mother, who, you know, went to Washington High across the street from Washington Park, when I went off, she gave me all this great life, all these lessons. But the only thing I really remember, sorry, Mom, is she said, never stop coming back home. She knew how important Atlanta was, and I was beginning to understand how important Atlanta was, but through this lens of Wink, a man who wasn't even from here. And you wouldn't know that unless you talked to him. He started talking about December Capricorn, Winston-Salem, blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, yeah, we know where you're from. But he taught me so much about how to build community and how to prioritize Black folk and how to always, you know, understand your privilege and, you know, lower a hand to pull other people up. And the story that I remember in that, you know, starting out as a camper, ending up as a counselor, trying to mimic the things that I saw from my counselors. There was this one moment, it was the summer before I went off to college, and Wink came up to me. He was like, hey, I need your help. There's a kid here whose mom just got here, and he can't find his tennis racket. And I was like, oh man, I was there so many times where like my mom would come through, Wink would see my panic, he was like, oh no, like, we're about to get in trouble. And so, you know, it was this moment, he was like, remember, go help, go save this young boy from his mother. And so we're running around, I'm in the bathroom, blah, 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 with this little kid trying to figure out what happened today. And as we are in the bathroom, I stand up on this is in McGee, I stand up and look on top of the lockers, and sitting on top of the lockers is the wallet that I lost when I was 10. Which raised two questions. I was like, one, someone should clean the top of these lockers more often. But two, I saw it, I couldn't believe it. I ran out, we found his racket, I was like, get out of here, I gotta go tell Wink I found his wallet. And ran out to court 6, interrupted his whole practice, which is a pattern of mine, and I just remember the smile on his face. We just like thought it was the funniest thing ever. And then the final story I wanted to tell, which is the thing I will think about a lot, is you know, every time I would come home, I would, you know, do my rounds, and it always eventually bring me back to Washington or McGee or the Unity or you know, the spots, because he taught me how to be a regular. He taught me the importance of walking into a place and they know your name. And in one of those years, he brought up how he wanted to take the camp to the US Open, but was struggling, was having some issues. And that year, me and a bunch of my friends raised $25K to send the whole camp to the US Open. In the following year, and, you know, I felt like we did it. I wanted to do it for those kids because I knew it'd be an experience they'd never forget, but I also just like wanted someone to do something for Wink because he did so much for so many of us and didn't ask for anything. You know, there were kids in that camp, you know, sometimes they had money to pay for camp, sometimes they didn't. They always got to come to camp, and just realizing that, you know, as I got older, I could start to do things for Wink, really became one of the great joys of my life. So I'm just happy to have been allowed to say a couple words. And, you know, when people pass on, we try to honor them and keep their spirit alive. And there's no doubt that his legacy, if we all continue to do what we say we're going to do, his legacy will only get stronger. So thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Reverend Dean, for allowing us to be here, and my friend, Reverend Dr. Milner from the Georgia Coalition of the People's Agenda. I want all parents that entrusted their child to Coach Wink William Fulton, please stand. I'm speaking on behalf of all of these parents today. Coach Wink was a phenomenal giant of a man. I played tennis out of McGee, so Lee started coming there with me as a very small child, and it was like glorified babysitting at first. Wink was not only my friend, and he was my tennis partner at one point, and he wasn't like Terry and Jerome and Jonathan. When you were playing with Wink, he was your partner. These guys would be trying to coach you, bend your knees. Wink was like, next shot, get the next one. He'd be encouraged. I'm kidding, Terry was supportive too. But he was always a supportive partner on the court. He has been there for my son in so many ways. Lee started playing tennis, like I said, at McGee as a small child. He went on to play tennis at Marist, and when he decided he wanted to give up tennis, I almost died. His coaches were going crazy, so I called Coach Wink, and Coach Wink said, let that boy do what he want to do. And as y'all know how that worked out for him. He turned out okay with the football. He went to play football. But Coach Wink is what we all need in the community. We need a person that we can entrust our children to, that they feel safe. We need a safe place like McGee that they can go to and feel comfortable. During the, when Lee was small, you know, there were gangs in the streets of Southwest Atlanta, but we all knew that we could send them to McGee and they were safe there. I want to thank you, Jeff, for being his little big brother. He always referred to you as his little big brother, for sharing him with us. Wink was a proud Morehouse man, and I'm just glad that we had some time between when he made his transition now so we can come here today to celebrate. I couldn't live in that kind of grief that I was feeling when we lost Wink, but now I feel a little bit lighter, especially having, you know, I was at a memorial service and a concert broke out. Y'all saw that? Thank God for that. That kind of lifted my spirit, but I'm honored to speak on behalf of all the parents here today and all of the, if Coach Wink ever coached you, please stand. That's the whole church. But thank you. It's my honor to be able to speak today on behalf of everyone. Thank you so much.
Greetings. I'm Terry Alexander. So I grew up in Virginia. Wink grew up in North Carolina. Our recreational park team, we started this thing called Rainbow Tennis League where we would play against other cities. So even though I'm older than Wink, Wink had started playing tennis before me, so when our team played theirs, he was better, okay? So we're not gonna get into that part of it. But, as I, think about it, if you're not a follower, you're a leader. When you're a leader, you're a trailblazer. And so, luckily we have trailblazers. When we met in high school, we left and went our separate ways, but I ended up going to Livingstone College initially. He came to Morehouse. I didn't finish at Livingstone. I ended up at Morehouse. So I'm continually following behind him, okay? He went to McGee. I ended up at McGee, And when I went to McGee, I really hadn't made a real serious effort at coaching and teaching tennis. I was just getting out of the military. I'm just finding my way. But at going over to McGee, I used to see him and the other guys there and how serious they were about it. And I realized this is something they're passionate about, something I can do. But the example he set was, if you're gonna do it, you gotta be passionate about it. Because quite a few people have tried it and they don't do it anymore, And so I used to always admire a couple of things, and I talked to Jeff about this not too long ago. One skill that Wink had that I knew I didn't have, he could always remember everybody's name, everybody's name. And that was a thing. I was like, whenever I needed to find somebody, catch up with somebody, I called Wink. I always find myself calling Wink. And a couple of weeks ago, I talked to Jeff, and I was getting ready to call Wink. I needed to catch somebody, and I was getting ready to call Wink, but I didn't. But within an hour, that person's name came to me, and I know it was Wink sending me. He knew what I needed, and he sent me the name. Because on any other, look, you can give me a year, I can't think of nobody's name, And everybody kept saying, I ended up being the coach at Morehouse. So I have privy to all the scorebooks. And all the time as coach, everybody's always asking me, did this player play for Morehouse? Did that player play for Morehouse? So I'm always looking at the scorebooks. And it took me 10 years working there before I connected William Fulton to Wink. I was like, I didn't know, I never knew any William Fulton. All I've been doing for 30, 40 years is Wink, And people kept saying, William Fulton. I'm like, I don't see no Wink. I see, all right. I said, maybe he didn't play for Morehouse. I don't know, But Wink has always been a trailblazer in this teaching thing for me, But one thing he did teach me is I don't do kids, He's the fuzzy wuzzy coach. I can't do that, I couldn't do that, nor could I deal with the parents, that we used to always talk about it. This kid comes in, he's kind of obese for a kid, and his parents has this dream of him making it to the pro circuit. And the parent is getting on Wink why their kid isn't being as successful as they think. I said, yeah, Wink, that's you. I can't do that. I'm going over here. But Wink has always been that type of trailblazer for me and quite a few others. Several of his players have played for me at Morehouse. And if it hadn't been for him, You know, we wouldn't have had some good teams over the years. You know, Wink and I, at one point, we even were roommates. You know, when I first got married, still had my house over in West Manor, and Wink came to live with me, you know, and we would have our conversations at night. Like people know, you're gonna have a conversation with Wink, you gotta set aside about an hour and a half, 2 hours, you know, Wink, where you going, what you gonna eat? 3 hours later, we still talking about how he ate somewhere, you know, cross town 2 years ago. But, you know, those are the type things you know, and but it really, those conversations with everybody let you feel like you were important to him during that time. He takes the time to talk to you. I never remember him cutting me off. He got to go or whatever. He'll be late going where he going to continue the conversation with you. And, you know, I just, as him being a trailblazer for me, you know, if I could just end up knowing half the people that he knows, I'll be feeling like I did, you know, a great deed to my community as well. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Hart. Probably most of you know me. Today, I'm just a wreck. I spoke at the funeral, so I'm not going to take much time now. But I do want to say that, boy, I'm a wreck today. I was all right at the funeral. I seen all these people. I was like, oh my goodness. What shoes to fill. I'm usually just a sponsor, but now I'm a coach at McGee. And that term coach is something. Just a little while, I've been doing it. It's just phenomenal how those kids make you feel. And unlike Terry, I'm doing kids. So I follow behind and I stay close and look at Coach Coxton. Because you know him and Wink, it's like so much. So I do want to let you know, because a lot of you have these questions that I have the answers to, okay? And that is, we're definitely going to keep this legacy going. I believe Jeff is going to introduce our new Madam President of Coach Wink's NJTL. We have a phenomenal president for Coach Wink's NJTL. I like her, especially because she put me totally in charge of this year's trip to New York. We are definitely going to raise this money. This is going to be the most well-funded year that we take the kids to New York City. I went with Coach 6 years. 6 years. And quickly, the first year, he hurt my feelings. My feelings was hurt. But after I got over myself, I realized why. It wasn't about me. It was about the kids. You knew you send your kid with Coach Wink, he good. He don't care nothing about me or nobody else. It's all about them kids. I'm hoping to at least have some type of level of that with the parents. Okay? Like I said, I'll make this short, but I am so impressed with you young people. I am so impressed with you young people, because oftentimes we can't get young people involved in what we're doing, and we fall, we fizzle out. It goes soft, but this time, Jeff's gonna tell you, we got a young, bright, phenomenal president of Coach Wink's NJTL. And we will soon be letting you know where you can donate and how it will be done, and it will be kept in the best of hands. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Woo! I'm Sean Polite Bledsoe, and it is an honor to be here to recognize Wink. I am also impressed by all the young, not young anymore, but adults that Wink helped raise, Fresh, Neiger, and Rocky, and there's so many more out here that I am proud of everything that you have done, and I'm sure that Wink is extremely proud of you and looking down on you and thankful that you have put this event together and that his spirit will continue to be in all of our heart. I have my own personal story with Wink. I never got the opportunity to go to US Open. I donated, but never had the opportunity to go. My story with Wink, I started playing at McGee in '93. I met Jerome and Wink and Terry, and I think Sam was there. He was my first coach. And I remember I was playing a tennis match. I won't tell who my partner was because they may be embarrassed. But we were up in the third set, 5-0. Those of you that play tennis, you know, you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting ready to win this match. Well, somebody higher power have a different story, and we lost that match 7-5. I was torn apart, and so I was walking into the tennis center, and I saw Wink. And those of you that know Wink, he's so positive, but at that point, I didn't want to really hear all that. I was just like, I wanted to just cry. I was like so upset. And Wink started talking, and as we know, talking. And I wanted to just go to my car and just take all this in, like, what did I do wrong, and why did I lose a 5-0 match? And Wink was like, you know, Polite, he called me Polite Delight, as Jerome does affectionately. And he said, you know, Polite, you may have lost that match, but you're gonna live to win another day. I was like, I mean, that stuck with me until today. I always think about that when I'm down and not feeling my best. I think about when he would say, you're gonna live to win another day. And when I heard of his passing, it really just brought back a lot of memories of McGee and how it was a sense of community when I started at McGee. We would go to McGee, and from every day after work, I would get off work at 5:30 and I would head to McGee with all my gear, and I would see everyone. There's a lot of people out in this audience that we spent a lot of time at McGee. On Friday nights, we would get there after work. We wouldn't leave till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning because Jerome or Wink was keeping the center open for us. And I just had so many stories, and I remember one night, I know Wink had to be tired because he had came in with the kids getting all out of the van, and the parents were picking them up, and we were still at McGee. But he stayed for us to just enjoy each other and a sense of community, and I know that's what he strived for, is to have a sense of community. He raised these children as though they were his children. And as we think about Wink and the legacy that he has, I just want everyone to continue to think about raising these young youth to be positive and get an education, even if it's not to go to college, but teach them to be kind. There's so much going on right now in this world where we have so many people that are angry, you know, you see the road rage, and people are not taking the time out just to love each other. And Wink was one of those people that you just loved. And he told me about a restaurant, Unity Restaurant off of off of MLK, that I lived off of Linkwood and MLK. I knew nothing about that restaurant. And Wink said, you gotta go. So when I went in, he said, make sure you tell him I sent you. I was like, okay. So when I went in, I said, oh yeah, Wink sent me. Man, my plate was so big. I had so much food on that plate, I had to get a to-go box. I was like, well, Wink, where else do you know I could go? Because if you told them his name, they were feeding you well. And so those are just stories that rest with me in my heart. And going back to the story when I lost my match, as I was leaving, Wink was putting his stuff in that green whoopty that he had, and he would always say, yeah, my car gonna ride forever. And his brother Jeff would always be working on his car, and as I was leaving, I looked back, and Wink was doing something with the tire. I was like, I don't know if he gonna make it out in this parking lot, because I don't know what was going on with that tire. But I think about that green whoopty that he had, hoopty, I guess. How many children rode in that vehicle? They raising their hands. And he would pick them up at McGee, take them safely in that green whoopty, and bring them right back. And he said he was never gonna get rid of that vehicle until the vehicle wheels fell off or whatever. And to this day, he still had that vehicle. So thank you, Jeff, because you had a lot to contribute in that. And so anyway, that's really all I have to say. And as I leave, I want to make sure that everyone thinks of Wink whenever you are having a bad day, and know that he will say, as he said to me, live to win another day.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Quincy Coxon. I met Coach Wink when he was a student at Morehouse. And I remember hearing about Jeff, and he said, my brother's gonna be up here soon. And I met Jeff and met his father, and I remember him taking us up to Winston-Salem to a tournament, and he wanted to show everyone what he had been working on here in Atlanta. And he was like, I know Winston-Salem's my home, but I want y'all to go up there and show them what y'all are doing in Atlanta, and how proud he was, and how if you knew Wink or you interacted with him, it was never about him. Everything was about you. He made everyone feel special, and I don't think he met anyone or anyone met him that did not have a kind thing to say about him. He could go anywhere and run into people and know people, and if you needed somewhere to eat, everyone knows you can call Wink and he could tell you where to go, what side of town. He could tell you. And one of our last meals was at Lake and Oak, and we were there probably 2 hours, and he was gonna tell you everything that was going on with him and everyone else. And even if you don't see people or don't meet people, he kept you updated on what everyone was doing. And I just want to say that a lot of people I haven't seen in 20, 30 years, but I see today. I teach school, and one of my coworkers' daughter went to Coach Wink, and I did not know that, and now her daughter takes lessons from Coach Wink. So he has touched at least 3 to 4 generations of people here in Atlanta. I remember, y'all remember the cars. I remember before he had a car. And Wink would pay my way on Marta. He had an apartment over off Camp Creek, him and this guy named Gary, that they were college roommates with. And he would take me, and I don't know how a college student had money to spend on other people, but he would do it. Even when he was in school, he didn't even think about what he had or what he wanted. He wanted to make sure that you was all right and you had what you need. And I just want to say thank you, Mr. Fulton, for sharing us with him and raising him and instilling the values in him that he's passed on to so many other people, so his legacy will live on.
Hello. My name's Lorenzo Hammonds, or Lo, like a lot of people called me back then. I met Wink in the seventh grade, sneaking out of my house to go to the tennis center to buy candy, right? So I meet Wink and Les, and they start telling me how I'm gonna have these, you can have this scholarship, you can be sponsored, you just play tennis, you can have whatever you want. I could have got the scholarship, never could have got sponsored. But what I did get was an invaluable relationship, not just with him, but every male at the tennis center that had something to do with my life, with my friends' lives. you know, even the bonds that we have now are because of Wink. And I can't pick one story to tell about him. I know he talked about his car. The car, I remember, was the red Nissan Sentra with the Polk audio speakers that I could not imagine how many tickets he could have got because there was way too many kids in that car at one time. But he did get us to where we were and going and back home safely and with something more than just tennis, what we walked away from. So the lessons on that court, I use them every day. And I still have my crew of brothers here. So thank you, Wink.
Oh, I need to take this off. All right, hi, I'm Brianna, Mondrell's wife, and we put together something for you, so haven't done a lot of public speaking lately, so I'm gonna read off my screen, but it's definitely from the heart. If you know Wink, you might not know me, but if you know me, you know Wink, because he was a part of every facet of my life. He was there supporting every one of my endeavors, from childhood to adulthood. When I met Coach, I had pretty much been raising myself and hadn't been in the best of situations. For some of elementary and most of middle school, my mother was incarcerated and my father was here in Georgia. After getting into some trouble, my father brought me to Georgia to live with him permanently. So you could imagine that when I met Wink, I was carrying some things. But from the first day I met him, there was nothing but love. He was one of the first ones to speak life to me, him and my father. And even when I felt like I didn't want to play the sport of tennis, I knew I wanted to be around him. Eventually, he won me over to the sport. Wink always spoke about helping others. That was his mission. Coach gave us the tool of tennis, and many of us have used that tool to better our lives in many ways. But Coach was always about not just doing for ourselves, but helping others. And knowing what he was able to do by himself, imagine what we can do together to help our youth. But we have to be willing to make time for it. We all know how busy life gets with kids and work, etc. But one of the things Coach brought up often was us coming together outside of events like these. He never asked for anything more than that. It will take all of us to keep his name and his legacy alive. He really wanted it done while he was here. But sometimes we need that spark. So in the days, months, years to come, if there's any way you'd like to help with his mission here or in your own area, do that thing. It's one of the best ways to say thank you, and it would mean the world.
And not to take too much time, I had my wife read that. One, I didn't know if I would be able to get up here and speak. Not just off emotion, but more of a medical condition. So me and Wink was, so I put it, Wink was everything to me. We still spoke every single week. Even right now, I have two kids, a 4-year-old daughter and a 4-month-old son, and I still haven't been able to tell my daughter he's not gonna be able to come back over these following weekends. She's still asking for him every other weekend. Where is Coach at? Is he coming? And I haven't figured out how to mention to her or have even tell her that he's not going to be able to come anymore. So again, that was my story. I'm from North Carolina. I moved here, didn't have any guidance, and he's been in my corner ever since. And that's why I've chose to coach tennis. Even to this day, like I told Wink, he made me write a list of manifestations down, and I was like, man, my wife has to play tennis because tennis has done so much for me. And even to this day, like I said, 10 years, maybe 7 years now, me and my wife have been coaching tennis together. We run tennis tournaments up in Alpharetta, and I even wasn't able to come to the city anymore, but Wink would come every weekend to Alpharetta to sit with us, and we'd go out to eat. Like, he knows people in the restaurants in the area where I'm from now. And I have to go let them know that he won't be able to come in anymore. And I still haven't got around to that. So again, because of him, I was the first in my family to go to college. He will always say, Drill, I haven't traveled the world with tennis yet, but you have. I can't even list all the places I got to travel through because of this guy. And back to the medical condition, like I said, a few years ago, I got sick, and I think from working too much from 7 to 11 building a tennis program. And when that happened,
I couldn't get out of bed for about 4 weeks. And Wink called every day. Jeff, I don't know if people even know that. He called me every day and told me, you got to get back on the court. I was never going to coach again. I was trying to do every job but coach because it took so much from me. He's like, you got to get back on the court. You have to get back on the court. And that led to me finally being back with my wife now at GAC. And I love all of my students, but now I started seeing kids that look like me again. For years I hadn't. And I would call Wink and I'd be like, Coach, I'm on the court. And we'd talk about it. I said, Coach, he looks like us. He's like, that's what I'm talking about, Drew. That's what I'm talking about. Because now I'm still trying to build on what he did for me. So tennis wasn't just a sport anymore. It changed my life completely. It changed my family's life. My sisters all went to college after I went. And yeah, today I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to speak. Like I said, I kind of get a little weak from this condition I have now, which has something to do with the heart, with this weird. But I'm going to live with it, and I'm going to keep pushing his legacy as much as we can. And I know Jeff's going to introduce my wife later, but I know she's going to be the president of the NJTL going forward. And yeah, he just kept saying that we can't get together at these times. He wanted us to get together way more than what we do. And like I said, even as far as me being busy with my kids, we don't have to communicate all the time. We don't have to talk, but tennis changed our lives. And we need to still make sure we're giving that back to the youth now, because Wink did it not by himself. He had a supporting cast, but Wink did a lot on his own. So imagine what we can do together with everything that he's done for us. There's a lot of us in here. Like I said, we're doing very well. It's a lot we can do to continue this thing for Coach Wink. And thank y'all. Sorry.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Wow. Wink. Wow. Wink, for me, and I'm sure for so many people, Wink just breathed life into everyone that he met. I started playing tennis at 16. When, people like, oh, you're not going to do anything, you're never going to do anything. But Wink, he said, no, don't worry about it, brother. We gonna play, we're gonna do it. And every day, Wink come pick me up from my house, I was hitting tennis balls against the wall. Wink bring me up there, he said, all right, coach these children, and we're gonna play. And I mean, every day we got better and better. We had a group of guys, Fresh, Rocky, and we got the Jonan, and just talking, and that became the big focal point of us getting together, talking and Joan each other. He even wanted to be like, okay, well, Judah, Joan me today. We having a bad day, so everybody get on me today. And we get in, and he was just that type of person that he just brought everybody together. And I mean, like I said, he just breathed so much life. And I mean, a lot of people that he coached, got scholarships. I got a tennis scholarship. I didn't have to pay for student loans, all from just coming up there joking at McGee Tennis Center. And so I thank him for all the many lessons that he did, how he would teach us patience. He would say, are y'all ready to go? Oh, okay. And he'd talk for about 4 or 5 more hours. 4 or 5 more hours. And then you tap him on the shoulder, and he would say, relax, relax. And all I could think about, with Wink, and when I go through these tough moments and everything, I think of him putting his hand on my shoulder, get out of the way of putting his hand on your shoulder and pushing it down and say, relax. So thank you for, everything here, and it's so good to see y'all. I haven't seen y'all in like 20 years. So thank you.
Hello, everybody. All righty. I didn't know how this was going to happen, but I figured it would be a robbery for me to not even attempt to say something about Coach Wink. and his impact. My name is Terrell Alabagi. A lot of you all, if you don't know me, you know, probably knew my dad, Coach Bowler. So he was kind of, when Wink was at his tenure at McGee, my dad was doing the same work at Washington Park. And I've known Wink since I was probably 8, 9, but I didn't really meet Coach Wink until I graduated from college and started my adult path. So some of you all knew as well, I was doing music, or I started doing music as well. And I tried to keep my two worlds separate. And when Coach Wink found out, from that moment on, he made sure to tell everybody that he introduced that about my music and me as an artist, and also as a part of who I was and who seemed like he was trying to groom me to be. We kind of collided, or it came to a head when after he came and started running Washington Park, and they were doing these big PR moments where they would have a lot of people and the media come. And one they got away with it one year, and they had somebody who wasn't from McGee or Washington Park to speak on behalf of McGee and Washington Park. I said, Coach Wink, it ain't never happening like this again. And I said, next time they come, I'm gonna say something. And the next time they came, I did. But in that moment, I think he saw in me something I didn't probably see in myself. I just knew I had to do something, because the culture and the time period that he represented, that he stepped in to continue, I didn't know. I didn't want him to have to do it by himself, if I could say it that way. I grew up in a time period where McGee and Washington Park, like everybody else has said, is kind of like a shelter, a safe haven, a place where kids can go and not just get, people could go, our community, our culture could go. You could find, it's like a basketball court where you go in, there's always gonna be somebody there looking for an extra person to play with. And I know for me, I saw a lot of people older than me, some here who I looked up to a lot. But I knew that I wanted to be more like them than the people I would see in other environments. And as I got older, I noticed that those places were becoming rare, few and far in between. Trying to keep it all on topic. But Coach Wink was one of the only people that I saw that stepped in to preserve it. And I guess I'm partial to it, because I feel like Washington Park is my home. I literally lived there. If I wasn't at school, I was at Washington Park. I was there more than my own home. Him, the whole, and I'm jumping around a bit because I know, I don't know if y'all know this ain't easy, but when he took the kids to Washington, to the U.S. Open, I was fortunate enough to make the trip in I think 2019, and I saw a side of Coach Wink that I hadn't seen before. I didn't even know existed in a person that we kind of take it for granted. A lot of people grow up around people like this, but you take it for granted until, ain't nobody doing it no more. But I saw, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Joe, but I saw once or twice where he was in tears because it seemed like it was unappreciated, all that he went through to provide the opportunity and the experience that he did. And I ain't say nothing, I'm one of the type that be around, I'm around a lot of people and a lot of things, but I don't say nothing, but I watch. And it touched me in a way that made me feel like I gotta help out with this burden, because what he was carrying was more than just a vision, but it was the vision of the 20 to 30 to 40 years that came before him, that the Branch Currington started, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of y'all don't know that Washington Park was one of the first in the country where we could come, and McGee was a sister park, and I don't want to seem biased. I am a little biased, I ain't gonna lie to you. But they're brother and sister facilities. They met and they upheld the same things. And so it really hit me a different kind of way to find out about his passing, because a couple months ago, I had this realization that a lot of our coaches that do that kind of work to that depth, they don't get their flowers when they're alive. And I was like, man, I got to find some kind of way to do like some kind of memorial or some kind of ceremony just to say thank you. We think about I don't want to name coaches and leave anybody out, but we start thinking about all the coaches that used to pick us up and they hoopties, take us to USTA matches and Alta matches and make sure that we had something to eat when we went on the trips. And even Coach Terry, he was my coach in college at Morehouse. The people who are birthed from that culture, they starting to fall off. You know what I mean? It's the money is not rewarding in this industry and in service and ministry of love, but it's needed. We ain't got to talk about all the stuff that's going on. But anyway, I'm gonna shut it down. But I will say, I was trying to catch him before we left, man. But I wanted to tell him thank you for the work that he's doing, and like everybody else is committed to, I do too, to keep it going and to make sure that our kids and the next kids have a place and a coach like a Coach Wink.
Hello. My name is Edith Fresh, and I am related to this young man over here. And I am speaking today as a parent that Wink mentored, but Wink was more than just a mentor. And I'll just share just some brief comments about him. There was a time, and there are probably some other young people here who in the after-school program at Phyllis Wheatley. Okay. And during that time, Wink was a volunteer. He was helping out there to help with the boys and to keep them active. And this was a time where the boys, they became increasingly more active and began to work the nerves of the after-school staff, that Wink decided to introduce them to tennis. And that was our introduction to tennis and to Wink. And as a result of that, there were many things that happened so that Wink became more than just his coach. He became almost like a family member. And I'll give you an example. Several years ago, you may remember when there was a really terrible, terrible snowstorm. And apparently Wink had tried to call. And when he couldn't get us, and of course that was during the time before we had a lot of the cell phones, you know, so I'm a little older than I may look. And then what happened, he came to the house. He actually drove over in the snow. But little did he know he was going to be with us for 2 or 3 days because he could not get off the street. He couldn't get up the hill. So as a result of that, he spent 2 or 3 days with us, and there was another young man who was trying to reach Wink at the time and found out he was at our house and decided that we were having so much fun that he came over. And we had to make fire in the fireplace, but we had a lot of fun. And I think your parents finally had to come and get you because you didn't want to go home. But this was, at each milestone, Wink has been there for Eric. As a matter of fact, he is responsible for Eric ended up with a full tennis scholarship for college. And it would not have happened without Wink. He became very much a special person to us. So now we're here to pay tribute to him as he's done so much for us and to acknowledge the many, many lives that he touched. And we used to think that we were special. I find out today that he treated everybody as if they were special. And that is my comment and tribute for Wink. Thank you.
As you can see, we're not short of words in appreciation for everything he means to us collectively. We're going to move on. We have a couple recognitions and acknowledgments. I believe Melody Blunt, who is actually on to speak on behalf of Washington Park Tennis Association, she couldn't make it, but I believe Sandra Bush is going to stand in her stead, and then shortly after that, Councilmember Bond will speak on behalf of the Atlanta City Council.
I might as well tear up my notes because a lot of what has been said I had on this sheet. No, but I'll be okay. I was asked to make a few remarks about the Washington Park Tennis Association. Washington Park, as you know, is the first tennis center developed for African Americans in the city of Atlanta in the 1950s. Washington Park, the division, the residential area, is an historic neighborhood. Not Collier, but Washington Park. It was developed by Heman Perry. He also started with Citizens Trust Bank and an insurance company. He also donated land to build Booker T. Washington High School, which opened in 1924. I live in Booker T. Washington community. Now on the map, you will see Ashview Heights, but everywhere I go, and they say, where do you live? Booker T. Washington community. And I say that because there are historic people, legacy people, still living in Booker T. Washington. So if you can drive around or look on Google and do your research, you will be surprised. The house I live in is 100 years old, and it's been in my family 90 years. And I'm not just bragging, but I want you to know what's going on in Atlanta. It's called gentrification. So that's my whatever. But Wink, I met Wink so long ago, I can't remember the year, but he's my fellow HBCUer. I graduated from Hampton, and he graduated from Morehouse. I started playing tennis at Washington Park in 1978. There were 2 teams, one that was organized by Gene Young, and my team. I think I have Jazz, one of my team members is here. We played at Washington Park. We were the only 2 female teams at the time. And Wink came along, I can't remember the timeline because we had a lot of different people who managed the center. But when Wink got there, we had to do a little more lobbying to keep the center in shape like the rest of the city centers. And I'm giving you this background so you won't forget it. Those tennis centers were let out to be managed by a private company, and they did not want McGee